Joining us on this Tuesday talking about care for caregivers, right? You have loved ones you're caring for, and boy, it can be a full-time job, and there's services and things out there that can make things easier for you. Dr. Shane Kuhlman's with us. He's with Centerstone Research Institute. Megan Powell as well. She's a Dole Foundation Fellow, but also is a caregiver herself. And she said something really interesting to me during the break. It's like you can be what? A caregiver and not know it?
Mm-hmm. Very much.
And you're absolutely right, because it happens gradually sometimes, and before you know it, you realize how much you're doing for this other individual that you never had to in the past because they've just gotten worse.
I have a lot of friends who care for parents, like you were talking about. And it's one of those things where, you know, I didn't realize what I was doing, even as I was stepping into the role, because you're married to that person, or that's your parent, or that's your sibling, or whatever the situation is. And so it's family, and you just automatically do things because they need help. But somewhere in there, you have to recognize that you've gone past being that family member, and you are a caregiver.
Yeah.
And you have to make sure, we always say, you cannot, as a caregiver, you can't care for another person if you're not caring for yourself. You have to be in, I'm not going to say prime shape, because I'll be honest, there are not a lot of us who are in prime shape, because there is so much that comes with caregiving. But you have to make sure that your needs are being met, because you can't meet another person's needs if your basic needs
if you're not getting the rest. Now, I can say my sister-in-law and her husband, who passed away about a year ago from Alzheimer's, but for a good year and a half, once he really got bad, it was 24/7 for her. And it got to the point where we knew that she needed some help. There are centers where sometimes we knew that we could take twice a week and she could drop him off. And talk about those types of centers. I forget what it was called, but twice a week, boom, and he'd stay there all day, and that would give her 2 days. Hey, she wants to go see a movie, but a lot of times she just spent that cleaning the house, shopping, getting everything in place. But all of a sudden she didn't have in the back of her mind, oh, did he put a biscuit in the oven and forget about it, and we're going to burn down the house? He was somewhere where, talk about those places.
Yeah, so when you think of respite centers.
Okay, is that what they're called?
Yeah, so when you think about those kind of different activities that you can do, it gives you a break. And I think the interesting part about respite is that sometimes, you know, you are able to bring someone and have centers like that. Sometimes they aren't available. Sometimes other family members provide you respite. Like it takes a whole community, a town to provide care for someone, right? Like it is, it's sometimes when it's 24/7 care, or even when it's not 24/7 care, when you don't think it's care, like you said, sometimes you don't know when you're a caregiver, so you're always providing care of some kind. So I think finding that respite for you at various times, whatever that is vital. That's key, whether it be at a center, whether it be with other family members. Just acknowledging that you are going to struggle in this. Doesn't mean you're going to have a mental health disorder. Doesn't mean you're going to have mental health symptoms, but you're going to struggle as a caregiver, just like you would in others. And acknowledging that, I think, is huge. And that's important for folks to get to that point where it's okay that I'm struggling. I'm going to struggle, and that's okay.
And that's real important that you say it's okay, because I don't know if you feel this way. I think you have a good understanding of it, but I know I've heard people that they almost feel guilty. They're like, look at my loved one, and he can't even wipe his butt. Okay, he needs help 24/7, and here I am complaining about how I'm not getting enough sleep, and they feel guilty that they want to take some time for themselves. And I remember just thinking to myself with some people I've talked to about this, no, you have to, otherwise you won't be there for him if you collapse. But there's guilt. Does that come with it sometimes? And you shouldn't feel guilty, right?
No, but I think it's a natural. I think it's a natural thing to know. We're all going to fail. Unfortunately, though, as a caregiver, when you fail, it affects the person you're caring for. And so I see, you know, on the bad days that I just can't take, because my anxiety, I battle anxiety as well with my husband. And so when my anxiety's up, I always say anxiety is contagious in our house. So if he's triggered, I'm probably going to be a little more anxious. And if I'm anxious, then I automatically know, okay, I need to not let this out.
So what do you do in those moments where it's getting to you and you're in that house? Who can you call? What do you do if it's getting to a little crisis level that day, where clearly you're both just, you know, I mean, you're feeling your tightness in your chest, okay? And Well, what do you do in that moment?
A lot of times it's, hey, we need to take a break. You go in one room, I'm going to go in another room. And then I have friends. I'm very blessed to have friends that
you get on the call?
Yeah, I'll call and I'll say, okay, today's a day that, it's not a good day, or it's a day that we're driving each other crazy and I just need to vent for a minute. And that usually is enough. And I am really lucky. I have you'll laugh at this because they call my husband high functioning. And I always think of autism when you hear high functioning.
Right. Yeah, right.
But with what he has, he's very high functioning. My husband is very aware of what is going on in his head. And so a lot of times it's just that recognition of, okay, can you just stop? I'm just having a bad day. It has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, we all do.
Can you just take a breath,
it,
please, because you're really making this more difficult.
You'll say that to him, and he'll understand then at that point. So there's different levels, and the way they have, that's fantastic. Again, he understands it. Now, there's a lot of folks who have people they're caring for where they're simply not aware anymore. And again, that goes more to dementia. There may be other issues. What do you do in those instances?
I think it's challenging. It varies from person to person, right? There's certain cases of dementia where challenging the person or like trying to bring things to their awareness may or may not be helpful, depending on the person, depending on their stage of dementia or Alzheimer's, whatever that may be. So it varies person to person. But I think with cases of mental illness, as middle, higher functioning, anything like that, even lower functioning cases, I think acknowledging awareness, like any place where that person can have a role in their care is huge, right? To where they can acknowledge that this is going wrong for me, and to where they can be proactive at any stage where they're at, or at least if they're not proactive, they're just having a bad day and they're not realizing in that moment, they can be reactive whenever someone else says that and brings them to their awareness. Oh, okay, like I can acknowledge that, and before I get too stressed where I have hit my bubble to where it's too much for me and that bubble hasn't burst yet, maybe I can catch it earlier on. And that's because that's key for not compounding stress over time. When you have too many of those times when your bubble just keeps getting burst and you keep getting stressed, like that can just really wear on your body over time. And that's where sleep disruptions, other physical disruptions come into play.
I'm wondering if in some of these cases, and I know certainly for some of the individuals receiving the care, and it's something you have to watch, and I don't know about their loved ones, substance abuses come into play. I mean, as I just hear some people talking about the stress, I can understand how some, desperate, grab a bottle or pop a pill. And then, of course, that ultimately is going to make everything worse. But, I mean, to see that happening or how to intervene when that starts occurring, because that's just another layer on top of what they're already dealing with. Did your husband ever go that direction?
No, thankfully not.
Okay, but there are many, especially, and we know the suicide rate from Fort Campbell, and we know some of the substance abuse that comes in the aftermath because of what they're dealing with. And that's a whole other level, dealing with someone who maybe has all of a sudden become addicted to an opioid or is grabbing a drink whenever they can. And again, that's high-level stuff for someone to just have to deal with in that instance. And so, and I guess we'll put up Centerstone's number and others. As people are sitting here watching this, wondering, all right, well, I recognize and hear what she's saying. How do I get started? I mean, can they contact the Dole Foundation? Well, how do you get started? Getting help. And there's some of the information right there on the screen. Take that down if you're at home needing answers that we can't get to you today. But what do you suggest for where someone starts? They're realizing right now they're doing this. Maybe they didn't realize they were a caregiver till you said it just now on the show. What do they do?
I think first thing, I'm a huge advocate of mental health anyway, but I think the first thing is find a therapist.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
And if there is that waiting list, know that there are support organizations, especially more so on the military veteran side. Absolutely, Elizabeth Dole Foundation is a great place to start, but there are lots of support groups out there, even with Alzheimer's, dementia.
But that's a better. I mean, you may have a shot at that. You get to and the support groups literally is where you'll meet, and there's other like-minded folks sitting in a circle, and they can discuss, and you may even get ideas. You can tell them, well, this is what I'm dealing with my husband, and that really can help.
The bounce off between as a caregiver, there is nothing more empowering than being around other caregivers.
Because you're not alone. You know other.
And there is a recognition that I can be very, very real with a group of caregivers that I cannot be with even my family. It's a joke in our house, but it's also a coping mechanism in our house of when it's a really bad day and I've been asked 3 times in 2 hours, what's this, you know, and I just turn around and it literally is the way of just for me not losing my mind and go, you are a total TBI today. And I've said that in front of my mother and I thought she was going to have a fit because you don't talk to your husband that way on your mother's side. But if I say that to another caregiver, that caregiver is going to look at me and go, oh my gosh, I know exactly what you mean. And that starts a conversation and that starts a connection that suddenly you're understood. And I think caregiving, that is one of the biggest things is you have to have like-minded people to bounce off of. Because nothing that you're doing makes sense some days. Because it's not natural to provide care. Yes, there is a circle, but it's not normal to be taking care of your parent. Your parent's supposed to take care of you. And so you need that understanding and you need the support. You need the resources out there. And that's one of the things. I lived on Google for I don't know how long as we started on our journey trying to figure things out. And then once I realized, okay, wait a minute, this is a form of caregiving. Then I lived on Google to go, what is there out there for me? Because I'm going to lose my mind if I don't find something to support. And that's why I'm so thankful for Centerstone. You know, through Centerstone, there is Cohen Veterans Network that provides free counseling for military and veteran.
That's awesome.
At no cost, you know, and it's huge because, okay, wait, and I did. When things were really bad, I called and I said, hey, this is my situation. I need somebody, and don't be afraid to ask for what you need. Specifically, we were dealing with PTSD. I wanted a provider that I knew, understood, and had dealt with PTSD, both on the care level, but then also with the caregiver.
Let's take a break. We'll pick it up on that. We also have some phone calls we need to take. The number is 737-7587. As we go to the break, too, I want to put up that number again and the information throughout the show. We will. And there you have it for Centerstone. As she said, she made the call and it's made a difference. And if they can't help you, they'll certainly refer you to whatever it is you're seeking. So we'll take a break and be back with more right after this.